Hello. Today is July 7th, and we're here with three sections because we're trying to speedrun it. It's government, social media, and robot. I think there's, one robot story?
There's at least four.
One, four. It's really the same. Same
That's
thing.
what I always say. Especially when it comes to felonies, right?
Everything is really running together, including the felonies.
How was your guys' 4th? Did you do anything good?
I didn't do anything exciting.
I had a bowl of oatmeal.
You just had
Ooh.
one.
Yeah, it's good stuff. Microwave oatmeal. It's so
flavor?
easy to fix.
What flavor? You go natural or?
No, this one is apple cinnamon. It's really good.
That's now is that straight
Does it have a little piece
sugar
of
or is
apple in
it
it?
sugar substitute?
No, that whole bowl that I just had was only 100 calories, so I don't know what's
So
in
sugar
it.
substitute.
But
absolutely.
It sounds amazing, and it tastes amazing.
Sounds amazing.
And it's just apple
that
cinnamon.
Goopy,
Yeah.
like sloppy sound when you're digging
just-
into.
It's like, oh, this is yeah. If you can put some apple slices in it, it actually comes out really good. The only magic that I haven't figured out is like if you have more than one packet, because one 100 calorie packet's not really enough for me. And if you put two in there with a little bit of extra water, it doesn't come out.
Why don't you just make them in separate
It
bowls?
totally does.
That two separate bowls comes out way better than adding more than one.
How are you adjusting the cooking time though? That's probably where it's.
You need, the cooking time shouldn't be adjusted. It's literally the same. You just put more water.
Well, there's the magic.
Because I do that.
That doesn't
Yeah,
make
you
any
just
sense
add
to me.
more water.
Huh. Okay.
Seems like a higher volume.
Seems like a higher volume of matter would require more energy to cook, but perhaps the laws
No,
of physics
not
are
with
wrong.
Waymo.
Maybe we need to make a video about this.
The most amazing shit post on Level 1 ever.
Now, you know who else has gotten some negative comments? And perhaps enough for once in our lives, because we did get some concessions. Although, it seems like there was always a plan B lurking underneath when they gave up it's like, go for something that's crazy, and then when they refuse, talk them back to what's just insane, right?
This is more insane, I think. The Earn It Act amendments transfer the fight over Section 230 to the states. So yeah, the states are going to be regulating encryptions, just like the states regulate munitions, and that actually works out well.
I love this picture.
What? Don't breathe on me, bro.
Yeah, so the guaranteed backdoor is gone federally. And, like making end-to-end encryption illegal, that's not part of it anymore. So that's good. That's sane. But they've opened up each state to be able to make their own rules regarding this thing. But the internet doesn't really respect state lines.
Yeah.
So what does that mean? We got the California privacy thing, and every website kind of has to bow to that, because how do you keep the people of California out of your website?
Yeah.
So what sort of weird mixture is this going to create when one state has it and one state doesn't?
It also seemed like the European model, where the federal government was telling the state governments, look, you can levy fines against these technology companies if they don't give you a way for law enforcement to observe communications. That's what all these things are. Like, none of these things really come out and say, this is a ban on encryption. It's more like law enforcement needs access to your Gmail. Law enforcement needs access to your Pinterest. Law enforcement needs access to your Escape from Tarkarov loot. I don't know. And however the companies build that in, they don't care. They don't even specify. But of course, if you have end-to-end encryption, Google can't look at your message contents because it's not mathematically possible.
When it comes to the China trade war, I wonder if maybe somewhere on a federal level they're actually doing some like cross-platform planning, all the different agencies, and they keep rolling these headlines out 1 week at a time. Like every agency, it's like, all right, you wait till next week, because we got to keep this in the public eye. We got to keep reminding people who the enemy is. So just one at a time, please.
FCC formally declares Huawei and ZTE national security threats. And so this is the FCC. The FCC has, quote unquote, audited the equipment or whatever. And they're like, no, this is a national security threat because these are so badly put together.
Previously, we had the White House, and I think Congress and the Department of Justice all do this same thing. And it all has different effects. The big thing here is that sweet, sweet, free broadband money will not be going to either of these companies.
Yay, Cisco.
And it turns out that the Chinese make a lot more than just our networking equipment. Did you know that they make it's like 80% of our fireworks?
I would not be surprised by that.
Which is ironic, isn't it? Let freedom ring. And another thing that they make is baggage screening equipment.
U.S. pushes Europe to reject Chinese baggage screening tech over spying fears. This is, you read the article and it's like the baggage equipment could surreptitiously report to China. And it's like, wait, I thought they keep telling us that those are on an isolated network and nobody can get to those. They're not plugged into the internet.
And isn't it fine if they look at our stuff? Because what's the difference between China looking at it and the U.S. government looking at it?
Or the TSA.
But the U.S. is the good guys, right?
Right.
Right? Right?
So, yeah, they're saying reject, but I think a lot of the places already have that equipment in place. So that's expensive. I wonder if somebody in the U.S. government has a family member or is invested in a baggage screening equipment manufacturer.
Oh, no. Damn, those conflicts
that
of
would
interest.
never happen.
In the trademark world, you are not allowed to have very generic trademarks. That is, you can't trademark something that is just like a broad definition of the thing that you're doing.
Desk
like
maker.
Wine, for example. You can't just trademark wine because, it's ridiculous. And no one could create a business called that afterwards.
It's a noun.
And that has been tested when it comes to domain names, because obviously you would love to have a domain name that is just the thing you do.com, right?
Supreme Court says that generic domains like booking.com can be trademarked. This is a stunning reversal. So Wine Inc. can be wine.com, and that can be trademarked. Now, of course, booking.com said, no, we're not going to go after ebookings.com or webbooking.com or anything like that. We promise not to. But yet I'm forced to think of Monster Energy. I think one of the comments pointed out Monster Energy went after a children's book that had monster in the name.
It was the claw marks.
Oh.
Yeah,
it wasn't even in the name.
Yeah, those claw marks have been on everything, It's that was
a staple of 90s design.
Lady Ginsburg gave us that one. Thanks.
I don't think she understands what a .com is.
I don't think she understands the planet she's on. Now, Detroit is, when we talk about the current controversy when it comes to people of color and how technology works with them, you can't get a better testing ground than Detroit, because Detroit has a very high population of people of color. But they still insist on using facial recognition software.
Detroit Police Chief, facial recognition software misidentifies 96% of the time. Detroit regulated facial recognition software and is still only used on black people. What?
Now, the idea that it's only used on black people is not, that's not a rule that they have. It's just that they only use it for certain types of crimes. And in the past, they've used it for like a year and a half. During that time, everybody who's been wanted for one of those crimes has been black, except for 2, and they were of unknown color. So he says it's okay that's wrong, because that's not the only thing that they use.
Except for that one time that was the only thing that they used.
Was that in Detroit or was that in New York?
I think that was in Michigan somewhere. I don't think it was in Detroit, but it was definitely in Michigan.
They did mention him.
Yeah.
And they claim that that's never the only thing that they use.
Except when it's not.
A detective has to make some other determination. But in his case, that was definitely how it was. DataWorks Plus is the name of the company they use. I don't know. Have we heard of them before?
Just in that last article.
They commented on this and they were like, well, technically what he's saying is true, but you're taking it out of context. They didn't give any better context. They're going to continue to use it. And the guy that spoke out against it says they're going to still, he's like, yeah, we're still going to use it. It's okay. Doesn't matter. Human rights, what are those? And now for our Indochina block. Good Lord. So many stories this week. First of all, we'll talk about WeChat, which is kind of their version of, I guess, WhatsApp. That would be their version of WhatsApp.
Yeah.
And it's very, very widely used, not just in China, but people who have immigrated away from China and are keeping in touch with people back home, they use WeChat a lot. And supposedly, a lot of other people are using it to communicate with them other than their friends and family.
China's influence via WeChat is flying under the radar of most Western democracies. The United Front Work Department performs its quote-unquote biggest magic through WeChat. Is it time to rein in the covert influence? This is disturbing for a lot of... it wasn't described exactly this way in 1984, but imagine the whole... like, you've got the chat platform and you've got things going viral, and the message can be subtly manipulated. And that's what's happening here. And so it's not that, everybody's aware of it. I think this is so subtle that even people in China who are sensitive to this kind of thing may not be aware of the level of manipulation.
So the example they gave was Chinese in Australia. I guess they have a huge Chinese population in Australia. And so you're only allowed to have 500 people per WeChat group. But apparently they have software to manage many, many groups of 500. And they'll give out things, it's like fun little recipes and weather and feel-good articles until something happens. So they gave the example of this Australian politician, and she made some pro-Hong Kong statements. And all of a sudden, all the WeChat groups just like weaponized and focused in on her. And so they're saying it's like, well, clearly there's some sort of organization here. What are you going to do? Nothing. You're not going to do anything. I guess you might just, like make internet restrictions. Australia's been known to do that.
If we're pro Hong Kong, does that somehow result in more ad dollars for us or less? I think less, probably.
No, I think it results in more bullets.
We actually did get a lot of bot comments in the chat on those things.
And another thing about China is that it's such a juicy market that foreign companies want to do business there. But when you do business there, you play by their rules and there's no questions asked. It's like, all right, yeah, come on in. Yeah, set up a building, buy everything, get to the point where you can't easily extract yourself. And here are the new rules.
Chinese bank forced Western companies to install malware-laced tax software. Golden Spy is what at least Trustwave dubbed the spyware. Was found in a Chinese bank's official tax software, which the bank has been forcing Western companies to install. Even after you uninstall the software, it remains. Trustwave found this after they found some suspicious activity on their internal customers' corporate networks. And it's not clear if the bank is aware of the spyware, or if an employee put it there, or if it's supposed to be there, or if it's something more sinister. But yeah, there you go.
I like how so they said, well, it could be the Chinese government. Well, obviously, they've been known to do things like that. Could be the bank, because, business is kind of fast and loose in parts of China. Could be the development team that the bank hired, or it could be the foreign company trying to do some spying of its own. We're not sure.
It's just spying all the way down.
A lovely world. Meanwhile, China, they have their spat with Trump, obviously, and they have some issues again with Australia. Some people not enjoying that relationship. Taiwan, dark times. But when it comes to actually having a little bit of a shooting war, there is only one enemy that China has right now.
Apple and Google blocked dozens of Chinese apps in India. So TikTok was among them, but there's a list of apps in this article. But I guess TikTok was not one of the ones that Apple and Google blocked, but it's one of the ones that India was on India's list.
They
don't install.
Did they give a list here?
A lot of stuff from ByteDance.
Yeah, TikTok. 59 in all. And it seems like the Indian people, more than the government, are unhappy about China right now.
Yeah.
There's a lot of xenophobia going on there. Because 50 Indian military people got killed in a little border skirmish. Or not 50, I think it was 20, right? Yeah.
Was that a June event?
I believe so, yes.
Ages ago now. Yeah.
So, unfortunate. And India is, ironically, after their spat with China, more and more acting like the Chinese government when it comes to the internet. Because there's certain things that they don't like, and when they don't like you, they turn you off.
Multiple service providers are blocking DuckDuckGo in India. I don't know why, but it was swept up in this. It looks like a mistake, but yeah, because DuckDuckGo is not an illegit service.
I wonder.
I use DuckDuckGo, but
So here's a screenshot, and it does say, it's not like, oh, not found. It's like, no, this has been blocked. The government doesn't like this.
Now, you can use a third-party DNS provider and get around this, but good Lord.
So yeah, I can't, like, what would DuckDuckGo be doing? Do they have a deal with Google? They just want those search results for the government?
A long time ago, people were putting words that only appear on one page, like a unique word that will be indexed by Google, and then malware would search for that word, and then whatever web page came up with that word was part of a command and control system. I wonder if DuckDuckGo has been caught up in some of the malware that they're blocking in a similar way.
Well, India, much like the rest of the world, is on a bit of a lockdown. I think their virus activity was pretty bad lately, right? Didn't they have like a resurgence?
Yeah, not as bad as here.
And so a lot of people working from home, and they are dependent on our technology or China's technology, and it seems like they're tired of that. They want to roll their own.
India's richest man takes on Zoom. So he's founding his own thing. You know, it looks suspiciously like Zoom and works a lot like Zoom.
It seems like the UI was maybe copied.
Wow, what an incredible development powerhouse. It's a GeoMeet, I guess, because isn't that also the name of their mobile company? It's like Geo Mobile or Reliance Geo.
He owns that as well.
Yeah. So
Mukesh Ambani?
yeah.
I don't know. I never heard of him before, but
I'm sure everyone in the comments will tell us how we pronounce that incorrectly.
he's got a few dollars. Or
The
what's
Indian Jeff Bezos.
What's the Indian? What do they call their denomination of money?
If you hadn't have asked me, I could have told you.
Yeah.
Oh, is it the RS?
Is it rupee, right? Is that right? Is that how you pronounce that,
sounds right.
Rupee?
That sounds like that would be what RS stands
I
for.
thought that was the currency from Zelda.
It is, yeah.
Is it?
Isn't it funny
hang
how
on.
back in the day, in a video game, you could make something sound exotic just by getting a common foreign version of it?
That's
Yeah, so
because
no,
of
that was right.
the American education system is so bad that we don't even know what the other currencies around the world are called.
Well, in the Philippines, they are also, just like the rest of the world, having to do a lot of teleconferencing, but their internet system is really, really bad. And so they actually said, you know what, this is so serious, we need to get together and have like a congressional meeting and talk about this. And then something funny happened.
In the Philippines, a Senate hearing on connectivity marred by awful internet connection. So, you know, we're trying to video conference to talk about the internet connection, and the internet connection was not good enough to video conference about how bad the internet connection is. Womp womp.
It would be funny if it weren't sad.
It's not. The U.S.
You
is
think
not
that's just
far
like
behind.
were they like, well, I guess this proves that we need to do something?
Well,
Or
they
do
had
you
some.
think they'll just be like, it's not that bad?
No, they had some quotes, and the one guy, like when he wrapped it up, he was like, "All right, we're gonna have to end this because obviously nobody can connect. But isn't this ironic? Doesn't this point out what we're talking about?"
You're gonna have to run a lot of undersea cables to connect all the islands in a fiber optic mesh. That would work well.
Mystery shopping. Did I ever tell you guys I was once a mystery shopper?
Oh yeah.
And so yeah, I worked for a market research company, and they had other people that did mystery shopping, but those people were very unreliable. And so sometimes when they would just like disappear, we would have to do it. And one time I literally had to go, and you don't just shop, like you don't just buy stuff. Sometimes you'll go and be like, all right, where's this on the shelf? How many different things do they have? And one time I literally had to go and figure out how many different kinds of toilet paper they had at a Walmart. And I was there with my clipboard, strolling down the toilet paper aisle, marking things on a clipboard, and like every once in a while, a Walmart employee's head would like poke around the corner. They knew something was happening, but technically I wasn't doing anything wrong. But the old days of manual mystery shopping, especially in the age of people being afraid to go to the store, might be coming to an end.
Who is the mystery shopper leaving behind thousands of online shopping carts, says the Wall Street Journal in an attempt at a clickbait headline? The answer, Google. The Google bot. The Google bot is filling up shopping carts and leaving them behind. The reason? Retailers' awful behavior. So retailers will advertise one price to the bot or search engines, and then when people actually go to add the thing to their cart, it's many times more expensive. It's this arms race to get to the top of the listings, because it's like Google's like, oh, I found it for this much here. Click. That's not how much it costs. So the Google bot is acting like real people to try to figure out how much something actually costs so that it can list that price.
I've rarely felt more dirty than when I had to create some shopping cart abandoned reminder software. Ugh.
I wonder what the conversion rate on that was. Like 0.1%?
Well, no, we had to track that a little bit, and they did get a couple. But they gave you a coupon. 10%. That's a pro tip. Sometimes if you just go and fill up a cart and just like, I'll leave it there, sometimes they'll throw a coupon at you.
Newegg does that.
Well, on to actually, that was the robot section, wasn't it? Because that was an AI. But to further continue on with the robot section, the MIT. Now, when it comes to machine learning, you have to have a training set, which is a group of something that someone has gone through and labeled. So if you're going to do image training, for example, you have to have a big thing of images that someone's gone through and be like, yes, these are the things that are in these images. And then it can read it and it can learn from it. But sometimes those labels can get you in trouble.
MIT apologizes and permanently pulls offline a huge data set that taught AI systems to use racist and misogynistic slurs. Oops. Yeah, there was a huge organized data set that was organized by people. And guess what? Because it was organized by people, racist and misogynistic.
They had, so some of the highlights, pictures of monkeys with, you can imagine where those went. Pictures of women in swimsuits, whore. Also, one of my favorites, pictures of pregnant women were also tagged whore. And apparently, like, just random pictures of women were tagged with the old C word. So the AI was like, if you'd feed it an image, a wholesome image at the beach, and they'd be like, oh, that's just a beach full of whores is what that is. So they've apologized.
Oops.
Unfortunate.
How did that not get caught sooner, I wonder?
I don't know. I mean, because you would think that a lot of people would use MIT's data set. But I don't think it was overwhelmingly. You got to think the troublemakers that weren't a huge percentage, right?
Yeah.
So it was probably, it took a while for somebody to work out. It's like, wait a minute. I got to trace this back. What images did you use to call this a whore? And then, it went back and I was like, oh. Or maybe for a long time, when they got a tag, it just randomly, it was correct. It's like, how did it know? Now, the old deep fake face swap, we haven't seen a lot of headlines about that. But you got to think that, it's getting better, right? And you'd be right to think it's better, but not because of what you think with these, young terrorists and, ne'er-do-wells on the internet. No, it's got some big names behind it now.
Disney research. Neural face swapping technique can provide photorealistic high-resolution video. So Disney took that stuff and has been running with it for a number of months now with actual paid PhDs working on this, and it looks really good. Shockingly good.
And they, when they were called out on it, because remember when that first came out, people were like, oh, this is the devil. And Disney was like, yeah, it's kind of the devil, but we could use it on stunt doubles. And if someone dies, like the Star Wars thing, man, this is really going to be useful.
Keep using their body forever?
Yeah, so we're going to keep doing this. Yeah.
And here it has come to fruition.
And this is, I think it's real time, right? It's 720. So it's higher resolution than we've ever seen before in any of these. It's impressive. I mean, in 5 years, that's going to be crazy.
Yeah.
I'm kind of looking forward to it.
I can finally get my one of my longtime wishes, which is the original Lord of the Rings movie with Danny DeVito as all of the characters. Or Nicolas Cage. I think Nicolas Cage.
Another thing that we kind of haven't heard as much about, especially since the world almost ended, was self-driving cars. Now, of course, Tesla pushed their update, which wasn't really, it didn't raise the autonomy level.
An incremental update.
And
probably makes it drive into semis less.
And some of the companies are back on the road, but I think now that the new normal, things aren't better, but this is the new normal. So let's go back to announcing pie in the sky self-driving stuff every couple of months.
Nvidia and Mercedes to roll out software-defined autonomous vehicles by 2024. Vehicles receive over-the-air updates to ensure they are equipped with the latest autonomous features. So Nvidia and Mercedes think they can do it. They're going to need a huge data set.
Over-the-air updates for cars. God, that sounds like a bad idea.
What's the worst that can happen? Your car just shuts down while you're driving?
Not any worse than BMW's subscription heated seats.
I got to think the worst that could happen would be, a bus wreck that kills many, many people. Maybe someone drives into a fuel station.
Just because GTA.
They say it's going to be fine, and they're expecting level 3 to 4 autonomy. So we're still not at that magic number, but closer, I guess, than Tesla in 2024. Not yet. They don't have it yet. Interesting. And that's not the only robot company. Again, I think we've hit the point where they're like, all right, things aren't going back to normal. Let's just start announcing self-driving stuff again. It's time. We're ready to get back into this.
Polestar will build some sort of ride-hailing Robotaxi with Waymo. There's no details. There's literally no details other than Polestar and Waymo are going to get together to build a Robotaxi. Depending on what they do, this might not be entirely unrealistic. So, like, as I was reading this, I was thinking about, like, the bus system in Hawaii. There's basically just a circuit of buses. And you can, if you're a tourist, they're tourist buses, so you can just get on and get off because they go to all the touristy things. And that, in a self-driving format, could make a lot of sense because it's a closed circuit. The bus stops are all preset. The passenger interaction doesn't need to be a thing. You can just hop on and hop off however you want. I could see that. That would make sense.
Polestar just makes me think of strippers.
I was going to say that.
Terrible name.
Well, I thought this was in Vegas or somewhere, so it was like, oh, yeah, that makes sense. But
it's just a pole in the car.
Yeah, Waymo only operates in those desert places where the roads are just perfect grids.
The stripper buses are not really, like, you seem like that's a really amazing idea, but it's not because of the stop-and-go nature of traffic in an urban center.
And also the modern issue with being packed on buses with other people.
Yeah. Well, they have those in Vegas.
When it comes to Facebook's reign of terror, what they do best is buy other companies that are successful. They're really good at that. And you might think, well, that's not something that you're good at. You're just taking something that's already there and you're buying it. Yes, but they're very good at figuring out which ones to buy. And sometimes when they can't buy it, they try to build it themselves. Not as good at that.
Facebook is shutting down TikTok clone Lasso and Pinterest rival Hobbi.
I'd never even heard of Hobbi.
I don't think anyone had. Have you heard of Lasso?
Nope.
No.
Well, rip, I guess. You won't be missed.
Somebody should write an hilarious eulogy for them.
What can you say about Hobbi? No, really. What can you say?
I heard you didn't suffer. Now, Zuckerberg has been having a bit of a tough time. I don't think that June was his favorite month.
No.
And there actually were a couple of stories that more piling on to the adpocalypse. More people abandoning ship. That's the cool thing to do right now. That's the way to signal. That's the July signal is we're leaving Facebook. That makes people like you again if you're an evil corporation. And behind the scenes, it's been leaked what Zuckerberg actually thinks about that, and it's kind of funny.
Zuckerberg says that advertisers will be back to Facebook soon enough. So he doesn't really see it as a big deal, although he's unhappy with the whole stock price and blah, blah, blah. We're going to have some more stories about this, but journalists are finally sort of starting to get clued into that Zuckerberg is basically just pandering in literally everything.
So he's chosen this hill to die on, so...
You think so? He seems so genuine. So human and warm. Now
I feel like we could be friends.
You think you could, yeah? What would you talk about?
Was it him who did the weird goat dinner?
Yeah.
I would like
Yes.
to talk about that.
You think he wants to talk about that? Wouldn't you be afraid that road would lead you eating undercooked goat?
I mean, the way that episode was described, it sounds exactly like what the writers would have come up with for like when Data would discovered like a hunting ritual, and it was like, "Hey, Commander Riker, would you like some raw deer that I've just procured?" And it's like, Data, this is not what we do.
I do seem to remember some people in the comments said that was exaggerated, but like I never got the full story, and I want to hear it from the robot's mouth about what happened.
Was it
that
Dorsey
day.
that said that?
Yeah.
Also another guy that I don't trust, so... Well, let's think back before all of the more recent calamities to the salad days of Cambridge Analytica. If you don't remember Cambridge Analytica, they were using the Facebook API in a very nefarious way. Right after it was discovered, Facebook said, "We are getting rid of that API. It will not be available." And then like 6 months later, it came out that a bunch of companies still had access to the API, and they're like, "No, seriously, this time, we're done with it. It's over." And then another... like 6 months passed, and then we found out that a couple of companies still had access to it, and they're like, "What? No, for sure this time." And then it was gone forever.
Facebook says 5,000 app developers got user data after the cutoff date. Facebook privacy mechanism blocks apps from receiving user data if users didn't use an app for 90 days. Facebook said, "Oops, we audited it, and 5,000 apps continue to receive user data regardless." Oopsie.
Fool me 5 times. And the reason that Facebook is in the hot water that he is in is because he will not back down when it comes to politics. A lot of people understand how powerful social media is when it comes to influencing politics. And Zuckerberg says, post whatever you want politically on Facebook. We don't monitor that, although he has changed his tune a little bit. But more and more people are pressing him to, like Trump specifically, you must not let Trump speak on Facebook. That cannot be allowed. And it seems like based on this, Washington Post, they might have a little bit of bias, that he is more committed to this than anyone ever thought.
Zuckerberg once wanted to sanction Trump, but then Facebook wrote rules that accommodated him. So this is really just talking about how I guess the internal politics at Facebook sort of factored in here, because it's like, "No, Mr. Zuckerberg, if we do that, then it's going to hurt our ad revenue." Oh, wait.
And it did.
This the second picture in this little slideshow at the top of the article, I never really contemplated what it would be like for a robot and Trump to meet.
Is Zuckerberg that short?
Energy.
Look how tiny he is.
Yeah. A bizarre energy in this shot.
I guess
Some
with
would
all
say
those
sexual tension.
with all those like rare alloys and the battery system, you want to make it as small as possible, right?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
You don't want to waste. Did you say sexual tension? Can you imagine just like, Grump just wraps his hands around the back of his head and kisses him?
Oh.
Now that'd be a power
Write that
couple.
fanfic, Chip. How would Melania factor into that? Oh, wait, isn't Zuckerberg married too? That would be bizarre.
They're both trophies anyway. So
It's 2020. You never know.
If Trump came out as full homosexual, could he ever get that portion of the vote?
No. There's no
I
way.
don't think so. No. I think some gay people
I don't think
would turn
so.
straight.
I think
just
he's
so
done
they
too much
weren't-
damage.
because they hate him so much. He would definitely lose his base if he did that. Well,
Yeah.
Facebook is not the only social media. I consider Twitch social media. Would you say that?
Yeah.
That's
It's a little bit of
Kind
both.
of. I mean, it's
you don't
not.
you don't have to be social on it, but that's kind of where the magic is. Anyway, recently somebody in the Trump campaign, I gotta wonder, probably some young page or something, was like, "Hey, we could be streaming online. I mean, it's kind of popular." And they did, and I think it was fairly popular on Twitch, wasn't it?
Bernie
But-
did it a few months ago as well.
Bernie doesn't surprise me, because Bernie is,
Yeah.
I mean, his entire campaign and probably most of his decisions are made by younger people. While he
Yeah.
looks for his stool softener or whatever it is he does. But Trump is kind of a weird match for Twitch, but then maybe not. When I consider our Twitch lurkers, they're Trump people for sure. Anyway, Twitch has certain guidelines when it comes to hate and violence and stuff like that, and of course,
Twitch temporarily bans President Trump. Temporary suspension for hateful content. Yeah, I saw the Mount Rushmore address. I'd believe it.
I didn't watch that. How bad was it?
It was not unifying. Not.
Did you feel heartened as a nation while watching it?
what would you say if you were going to try to unify this country?
I'd have to think about
I
it.
don't think there's any way to do it. I'm not saying I'm not forgiving him for what he's doing. I'm just saying, what are you going to do?
I think having just a little bit more humility and a little bit more. I've tried to find apolitical experts and scientists to help me figure this out, and there's a difference of
Historians.
opinion for this, that, and the other. But I don't know.
The thing about it is, I don't think there are any apolitical. There's no apolitical journalists and there's no apolitical scientists anymore. It's all one side or the other.
That's crazy.
Yeah, it's crazy.
It's what was it? Was it? I think it was a quote from Einstein, something like, one fact is more powerful than 1,000 scientists. But it's getting to be, it's like one fact is more powerful than 1,000 politicians.
But the facts are no longer.
Yeah.
I mean, it's up in the air because you have two sides, quote unquote, doing
The
science,
facts, yeah.
then finding something completely different. So you still have to make a choice. That's not how that's supposed to work. And finally, Twitter, one of the things that people have asked for forever was an edit button on tweets. There's a lot of reasons that doesn't make sense, but people still beg for it. And Twitter has completely refused forever. And now they're saying what really actually boils down to it's never going to happen.
Twitter says it will add an edit button to tweets when everyone wears a mask. Oh, I see what you did
It's never
there.
happening. Rip in peace.
Yeah, the anti-mask crowd, they have a lot of interesting theories.
I wonder if there was you see those old Roman plays and the old Roman statues and everybody wore togas. At some point, there was a transition from togas to pants. You got to wonder if there was somebody that was so anti-pants.
I don't think the peasants were wearing togas.
That was just the royalty.
The politicians. Yeah.
Mm.
Yeah. That was a symbol. That was like the powdered wig.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I mean the toga. I'm sure it's comfortable, but it's just not practical.
The pants. Well, no, there were you would have loins because you would have to gird your loins like that. The origin of that is when you were getting ready to attack, and you would basically turn your loins into a pair of shorts. That was the act of girding them.
Which points out the ridiculousness of the toga.
Yeah. Well,
But if
pants
you're-
are just clearly superior.
But if you're out, working in the field all day, I don't think you want to waste your time with a toga.
Or a mask, as it were. The mask is it's clearly superior.
Well, Krista, I would say give us a mask goodbye, but you don't have a mask.
I don't have one on me, but I have one downstairs. But hello, today is July 8th. It's Wednesday, my dudes, and we're just doing business today. That's the only category that's available. So
a thick,
It's a long section.
thick amount of business this week because there wasn't a whole lot of
THICC.
anything else. And first, let's talk about Apple. Now, if you'll recall last week, Apple has these interesting new features, and you got to give them credit for it. It's not often we'll give Apple credit on this channel, but I'm going to give them credit for this. When things are trying to track you or copy your clipboard or do all the nefarious things that they do on mobile, Apple will now pop up and be like, hey, this app wants to do this. Are you sure you're going to let it? And people are like, wow, look at all these apps that were just spying on me relentlessly. And guess who isn't too happy about that?
Reuters has the article about Google-backed groups criticize Apple's new warnings on user tracking. Apple is playing right into Google is playing right into Apple's hands. Yeah.
They have a great quote here. I don't know if I'll be able to find it, but it's something like, and this is when the legal speak comes in and they start talking about real truth. Oh yeah, here we go. A little bit of self-awareness maybe.
A high risk of user refusal. It's like, yeah. The users are going to refuse to accept this.
Because no one wants it.
Yeah. That's what a lot of advertisers don't really realize, that all the millions upon millions of dollars that they've sunk into their tracking and analytics platforms, the value of that right now is dubious. But in another couple of years, the value for that is going to be near zero, because you're not going to be allowed to do that kind of tracking. You're going to have to do it a different way.
Well, the other big Apple revelation was the ARM processor that they will be building themselves and cutting all of the third parties out.
With ARM's help, of course.
And the big question is, though, well, we know now that they're going to emulate. Everybody kind of suspected it, but now we know they're going to emulate x86, so you can still keep using your apps. But how well is that going to perform? And they've actually sent out some sample kits, and compared to actual x86, it is not great. But if we compare it to other emulation, we can look to Microsoft, who did their own ARM version of the Surface. How does it compare to that?
First, Apple Silicon benchmarks destroy the Surface Pro X. So that was the Qualcomm Snapdragon Surface. It was reviewed about a year ago. It is about a year old. That Geekbench score, it's about 800, 850, something like that. Now, technically, these developer kit Macs are not supposed to be benchmarked. As part of your Apple developer agreement, you're not allowed to disclose the performance. But somehow they did, or Geekbench leaked it because it was not a pay-for copy. It's a score of 811 and a multi-core score of 2871.
Yeah. So
the Surface Pro only managed 764 versus 2983. That's not a huge difference, to be clear, but it's pretty big.
Nowhere near what you would get with actual x86. But again, you expect some loss with emulation. It's a question of how much. And it seems like maybe Apple has kind of figured it out. We'll see. And I guess we have to say that Apple giveth and Apple taketh away. Because they've given us security tools. That's nice. They've given us a new ARM processor. I guess, people have differing opinions on that. But when it comes to the iPhone, a dubious decision. Now, they have not announced this, but a lot of people are predicting it.
The iPhone 12 probably won't include the charger in the box. 20-watt power adapter will be sold separately, and probably no earphones or earbuds. So they were never going to include the wireless ones.
That's exactly what you will get. I like how they have the plastic that it came in, but it's empty. This is a great picture from Mac Rumors. What percentage of people do you think would be an iPhone user but don't have a USB port to use to charge anywhere in their house?
0%.
I think there's got to be some of them.
I think it's more crappy that how it was like a generation or two ago, you could do the fast charging thing, but it didn't come with a fast charge USB charger. So then people immediately bought a second charger that would enable them to do fast charging. That's what they're basing this decision on, I'm sure, because people that paid $1,000 for their iPhone also bought the accessory power adapter, which will charge faster than the power adapter in the box. And they're like, hey, most people that bought a phone also were willing to buy a charger, so we just got our market testing out of the way. We don't have to include a charger because most people are willing to buy a charger anyway.
Also,
That's so crazy that you're buying such like an expensive piece of software that doesn't work unless you charge it, and it doesn't come with a charger. Like,
Yeah.
how many Chinese manufacturers are firing up production of iPhone chargers just so they can drop that malware in there over USB?
There have been some amazing, like some hackers have produced really authentic looking charge cables. Like it's just a USB cable and it's still capable of dropping malware on the phone.
Oh, it's going to be amazing. Apple News. So Apple has a news collection service similar to Google News. And as we've covered a lot, there's kind of a contentious relationship between those news collation services and the news creators themselves, because they're like, hey, you're using our content to create your thing. And they're like, no, dude, we're just linking to you. It's different. Now, in Apple's case, they don't actually link to you. They just sort of like regurgitate your content right there in the Apple app, which has angered some of the big players.
New York Times removes its articles from Apple News and wants to build direct relationships with its paying readers. It went on to explain that, you know, it's been doing this thing with Apple for a few years now, and in so doing, it really doesn't feel like it's building direct relationships with its readers. It wants people to use its app. It wants people to pay it directly, and that's just not happening.
Also, that 30%.
30%, yeah. Now, wasn't it supposed to be less than 30% when a subscription is involved?
I think it's like the first year, right? And then they cut it.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's less than 30. Matt, was it 15?
It was something smaller, yeah.
Yeah. So,
Still seems like robbery, though.
yeah, and they point out that, you know, if it's Apple is serving from their own server, not from New York Times server. So then they lose that tracking and all that, and that's kind of the business model now, as disgusting as that is. Tesla. We've been just crazy headlines out of Tesla when it comes to the stock price. It's always kind of been the case. It's a bit of a roller coaster, although right now the roller coaster has been going up pretty consistently ever since the world went crazy. And now a new milestone that is just mind-blowing.
Tesla becomes the most valuable automaker in latest stock rally. Yeah, you heard it here first. Well, probably not, but Tesla is more valuable than Toyota? What?
Also, more valuable than Ford and GM combined.
What?
Maybe multiples of that.
It's hard for me to imagine how that's true, but then you remember the Mercedes Nvidia article from yesterday's news? The software component of that autonomous thing, I mean, Tesla has a larger data set than anybody to be able to use to train their thing.
I don't think this is based on actual business performance. I think
No.
this is stock market.
Yeah, it's just stock market. But
Yeah.
I'm talking about like potential for like if Tesla is able to lock up that autonomy, then everybody's going to have to buy their software because
see-
they're just so many years ahead.
Again, I don't think the modern investor is looking at any of that. I don't think they look at the companies. I think they're looking at the stock price and how it's performed. And it's that fear of missing out. And they're just piling in to get those big gains.
we had to do a stock market game when I was like in 8th grade where you had to like, you know, pick stocks and invest them. And then for the whole semester, you kept it all in a spreadsheet to see how well you did. And everyone was universally bad at it. And it feels like we're just playing that game right now. It's just 8th grade all over again.
But if in the 8th grade you'd actually like followed the curriculum and learned about, you know, like earnings per share and market projections and stuff like that, it would be useless to you because no one cares about that anymore.
Yeah.
It's just a big casino at this point. It's a big
That's how
casino,
it felt.
and chips are just showering from the ceiling at all times. But don't worry, nothing bad's going to happen.
But you know what? You can invest in Level 1 with that Patreon and or float plane membership.
There are no returns.
There are no. Yeah, the returns is the
Watch
smiles on our happy faces every week as we bring you
And then you
this.
get a podcast. They get a podcast every month.
That's true. And, who can put a value on the podcast? It's really priceless.
The last few have been a little depressing, but that's fine.
The world's a little depressing right now, Kristen.
Yeah.
Zoom. So we all know the story of Zoom. They, came out of nowhere and took the world by storm because we didn't really have a choice. They kind of won the teleconferencing war with their ease of use. And then they hit that little snag where it was like, wait a minute, you're not actually encrypting anything. You've lied to us. And they're like, no, we're going to. And during all that troublesome time, they made a promise. They were going to do a full transparency report. They just had to get it together first.
Zoom misses its own deadline to publish its first transparency report. Oh no. It's still not out as of the time that we're recording this. So they were going to have a report that just is like, okay, this is all the stuff. This is encryption. This is what we're doing. And how many government demands have we had for this, that, and the other? No, there's none of that.
Do you think that maybe they just hadn't actually looked into it yet? And after they put it together, they're like, ooh.
Yeah. I think
that
that's
doesn't
exactly
look good at all. That's a big number.
It's like, Tim, I haven't met you since I hired you like 3 years ago when we were a startup. What have you been doing? And his hair is all messed up. And he's like, I've fielded thousands and thousands of requests from 70 governments. I've been barely holding it together for you guys.
So, yeah, I'm sure that'll be disappointing when it comes out, if it comes out. Now, do you remember the hot controversy of learn to code?
Yeah.
Oh, that was hate speech.
Yeah,
Remember when
Twitter.
that was hate speech?
Yeah, Twitter was like, this is, they suspended some people because it was like,
You're not allowed to say that. You're not allowed to do that. But Microsoft and LinkedIn are offering a plan to their displaced employees that sounds a lot like learn to code.
Microsoft and LinkedIn to retrain unemployed workers for in-demand jobs. The companies will offer free training programs for 10 roles, such as software developer, found to be the most sought after using LinkedIn data.
And remember, if you have bad internet, just learn to code. Don't worry about that. You don't need infrastructure to learn how to do it.
Software developer number one. Graphic designer on the list, not number one.
If that was a veiled criticism of me, I don't hear it and I won't respond to it.
Now, if you are an Amazon employee, you are probably not facing that unemployment unless you speak out against their treatment of the pandemic. You are instead being worked to the bone because they're killing it and they need more and more employees. They need more and more work. Unfortunately, they've decided to stop giving you that extra $2, which a lot of people thought was a bad move. But maybe this will make you feel better.
Amazon to pay $500 million in bonuses to workers most exposed to the thing. It's giving out one-time bonuses to its frontline employees. This seems pretty crappy.
It's not a ton of money. See, 500 for the lowest, the lowest tier is 250, 150. So here we go. Partner drivers 500, part-time drivers 250, leadership positions 1,000, delivery service partners. What do you think a delivery service partner is? Is that the guy that runs the drivers?
I think it's probably the guy that owns the van and self-delivers.
Yeah.
And flex drivers, what is a flex driver? 150.
Maybe the flex driver is like the Uber where it's like, I'll take some packages today.
My question is, how is the guy who owns the truck place a quote-unquote frontline worker who deserves more than the person who's handling hundreds of packages every day?
Because that's the person who convinces those poor drivers to keep doing that terrible job.
I don't know. One of the guys that brings packages here just randomly drops it off with neighbors. He's like, "Oh, your neighbor had a lot of packages, so I left all your packages there too." And it's like,
there was this. I think it was an Amazon worker. There was a story where a guy had gotten a job. Yeah, he was doing the Amazon driving, and he tweeted or put a video online or something. And he was like, "F this driving stuff. This is too hard to work. Here's where the van is. The keys are in it, and the packages are in the back."
Wow.
Mergers. The big mobile merger happened, and the fallout is shaking out all these things that they promised would never happen. Although I think we did suspect this one was going to happen.
Sprint 5G is no more as T-Mobile focuses on its own network. Yeah, we knew this was coming. Remember how it was like, we'll be able to combine things? And we were like, no, that's not going to happen. Nope. And then they were like, no, really, let it happen. Yeah, it's not happening.
You will get credit toward switching over to T-Mobile. You don't get free credit. I don't know how much credit you get. I doubt it's more than 25%.
I wonder if I could bring in some ancient junker phones from like 20 years ago to Sprint and just be like, can we
tow it in if you have to? We'll take your trade. The other thing that we knew was on a timer was the goodwill that the ISPs were throwing toward their customers and all of this horribleness. And actually, at this point, it has already expired. We are now back to business as usual.
With the R value being over 1 for 83% of states in the U.S., data caps on Comcast, T-Mobile, etc. return on July 1. Yeah, so you're still working from home. They don't care.
Also,
late fees are back, too.
Late fees and disconnections will resume.
We've decided the pandemic is over, and now you will all pay for it.
Yeah.
Evictions have not resumed, at least here.
It's supposed to start August, I think. So prepare your butt for some real civil unrest when that happens.
So you get to stay in your home for another month, but without internet.
This is not good.
So Verily is a company that Alphabet gobbled up once upon a time, and like all companies right now, they are desperately trying to figure out how to signal that they are with it with the new outrage police. We got to do something. What are we going to do? And what they've decided is they're going to invest a bunch of money into initiatives for, equality and all that kinds of stuff. But the question, no one's questioning that. But the question is where does that money come from? And the answer is unpleasant if you work for them.
Alphabet-owned Verily suspended employee bonuses to fund diversity initiatives. What? Okay, the headline is slightly misleading. There's two kinds of bonuses, like the regular employee performance bonuses. Those are not suspended, but this is what's called like a spot bonus. So I'm not sure exactly how that works, but they took the money that was allocated for spot bonuses and reallocated it toward these diversity initiatives. So the employees got together and they wrote a letter to management that was like, hey, if this is actually important to the company, it seems like the company should fund it and not the employees. ...
And what I think a lot of people they're saying it, but they're almost too afraid to say it, is these diversity initiatives aren't going to do anything. This is stupid. Like you're wasting this money when we could have it because there's going to be a depression and we need it. I don't think it's going to happen. We're going to get those diversity initiatives if we had to be held down and have them inserted somewhere.
Hey, can we just defund the police? No. We're going to do this other little thing instead.
Instead, we're going to take an episode of The Golden Girls off the air.
It's like, wait, that's not what I asked for. It's like the monkey's paw. You ask for one thing, but you get something else instead.
And another thing that you will accept whether you like it or not. I don't care if the market doesn't want it. We will have foldable phones. It doesn't matter what you think. And of course, Samsung is the one saying that. They are absolutely determined that we get foldable phones.
Samsung is reportedly working on a more affordable Galaxy Fold. This is going to still have a foldable screen, or maybe it just folds and doesn't have foldable screens.
It folds once. This is a butterfly look.
Isn't that cool?
You can fold it one time in an emergency situation.
So yeah, they that's very expensive. What was it, like $2,000 for that thing? So they, I guess, kind of recognize that.
It was so expensive and pointless that even I didn't buy it.
So they're like, you know what? We're gonna shoot for between $900 and $1,100, a reasonable price, people.
That's still really expensive.
So we'll see. I don't know. I'm not going to buy one. Not interested in folding my phone.
Not interested, no.
When it comes to data storage, I always love to throw these stories in here where this just Now this doesn't exist yet, but I love it when they just have crazy numbers. They just throw out crazy numbers.
I saw the headline and I was like, I need this. And then I was like, wait, 2026? What?
But they have been. I mean, if you think about it, you get a little jaded to it, but it is crazy. Like, how big was the SD card now? It's just insane.
I think you can get a 2 terabyte SD card.
Yeah. So this is on the other end of the spectrum. This is the old magnetic tape. But the number is just astonishing.
400 terabyte storage drives in our future, according to Fujifilm. So this is LTO. We're on LTO 8. That's LTO 13. So that's several generations of improvement. The biggest LTO you can get right now, I think, is 28 terabytes, which doesn't seem large enough to me.
This is, what was the name? Strontium ferrite to replace barium ferrite.
Strontium ferrite, the data density is not there. And the article points out that the data density on this magnetic tape is still nowhere near that of mechanical hard drives. But yeah, our 400 terabyte future is not happening until next year at the earliest.
How about 768 terabyte? The extreme end of the spectrum here.
Yeah. Oh, I guess you can get 192 terabytes right now.
Exciting. So you can look forward to that.
Or at least the specification is written.
That, if things continue along the same trajectory that they are now, it's really going to help with, creating the backup of the internet for when things go offline forever.
You can get a lot of, I think I could get all the life, like the usable life data stuff in 2 terabytes. Because, a copy of Wikipedia and like a bunch of survival manuals and things like that.
Yeah, sure. Be very useful. Although, you'd have to take really good care of that tape.
Yeah. Or just have like 7 copies of it. That's like my Model M strategy. I've got enough Model M's to last me until I'm 80. And if I die before then, okay, then that's fine. But at the rate at which I'm consuming Model M keyboards, I should have enough to last until I'm 80.
You're going to have them buried with you?
Maybe just one.
Oh.
What about just pop all the keys off and have them loose in there?
Yeah, like sprinkled over your grave.
Oh, like Scrooge McDuck with keycaps?
Or you could just spread my ashes, but it's just full of keycaps.
Oh, that would be awesome. Be cremated and then go to the Unicomp factory where they still make Model M keyboards and have my ashes imbued into a limited edition Level 1 Model M keyboard for you guys.
Oh, do you think anyone would pay for that?
Yes, absolutely.
I'm all for
Someone in the in the comments tell us if you would pay for a Wendell keyboard that's literally made out of his ashes.
I'm all for cremation. I want to be cremated. But I learned the actual process. Have you ever looked into that?
Yeah, it's really horrifying.
Like your body cavity, your torso, no matter how long it burns, it kind of keeps its shape. So they have a big rod that they go in there and smash it down a halfway point.
Yeah.
What a terrible job. How many weeks after you start do you think you get jaded to that?
It'd probably be pretty quick. See, when I was 10 or 11, a bear came onto the property and it died, and we burned it like that, and it was a horrible smell, and it smelled like burning hair at first, and then it was a worse smell than burning hair, and then we had to poke it and do terrible things to it, and it was a mess.
Why wouldn't you just bury it?
It was too big. Nobody wanted to dig, and the ground was hard, and it was nobody wanted to fool with it.
How did you kill the bear?
308. It also ate a horse.
Well, that's unfortunate.
So it had to burn that as well. But yeah, the whole
a busy weekend.
Yeah,
dead bear's a dead bear.
The torso, and it was just it was like a hollowed out cavity at first, and it was just the smell was it was bad.
Yeah, that's what they describe. Plus, they apparently don't necessarily clean all of the ashes out every time.
Yeah.
So the urn you get is potpourri.
It's a best.
It doesn't matter, but it's just something to think about. Now, you alluded to this earlier, and this is terrifying, especially when we talk about Tesla and the whole Nvidia Mercedes thing, where our cars are more and more going down the road of software as a service. It's disgusting. But when you think about self-driving tech, okay, you can turn that on and off and blah, blah, blah. It's disgusting, but I get it. It's a feature that's purely, it's not mechanical in any way. It's just in the software of the car. But what about things that are mechanical?
Heated seats as a service. BMW wants to sell car features on demand. BMW says it's a way to try before you buy, but do people want an extra monthly fee? So BMW is going to pay to have heated seats installed in all their cars, which is, a standardized thing, and then they'll just turn it on and off with software, because of course that makes sense.
There's going to be some big money in hacking BMWs if they do this.
There was science fiction from like 1969 where you had to pay 5 or 10 cents to open the door. Like the door, it was a door as a service, and you had to pay 5 or 10 cents every time you wanted to open the door. And it was like people were like, "That's never going to happen."
They previously tried to do their nav system as software as a service, but the backlash was so huge they backed down from that. So you got to wonder what will happen with this.
Even stuff like the nav as a service doesn't make any sense, because it's like, I'll just plug my phone in and deal with it that way, because this is BS.
Oh, do you know Android Auto it just doesn't work.
Android Auto is just garbage anyway.
I plugged it in because I needed the map for the first time in a long time, and it just kept crashing. And I was like, that's weird. So I went online and I Googled it. And I was like, maybe it's something with my car. No. Every model, people were like, oh, yeah, this is happening with me too. Me too. And it was always a different car. It just doesn't work anymore.
It was literally a display protocol. All the whole point of Android Auto.
It didn't work real good before.
No, it was trash, but now it just doesn't function.
But the whole point was like, you just have a display in your car, just a dumb display. Mm-hmm. And the USB is a way of sending a display signal from your phone to your car, like VGA. How did they mess up VGA?
Oh, but they've also got this new cool feature, which doesn't work because it doesn't work at all. Projection. So you don't have to plug in the USB anymore. But it doesn't work. It crashes every time.
This is why Zoom could take over the universe. You got all these people working on all these projects, and they forget that their software has to be unobtrusive and not trash. And then,
it just needs to work first and foremost.
We need to introduce a wizard with 12 steps. It's like, I don't think that's going to make it easier on the users.
Unfortunately, disgusting things like charging you for your heated seats every month is exactly what major corporations want to do right now. It's not enough, because what do you think the margin is on a BMW?
Something insane.
It's crazy. Because you got to remember that the dealership is taking a big bite too.
Yeah. Like
everybody's making money all the way down the line there, except for the consumer. And when you're sold something like a phone that costs several $1,000s, that should be a one-time transaction, right? I mean, they're making a lot of money. That's a high margin item. But for Samsung, it's never enough.
Ads are taking over Samsung's Galaxy smartphones, and it needs to stop. When you buy a $2,000 smartphone, it shouldn't be the product. This is complaining about ads showing up in the dialer. So
look at that.
The phone dialer has an ad. This is, I guess, locate. There's like a new tab or something in the dialer, and it's like, oh, here's places near you.
Oh, Bixby.
Oh, I hate Bixby. I really am thinking, is it time to transition back to a dumb phone? Is it time?
It's time to transition to something that's not Samsung, because the hubris of the Bixby button. And before you say, oh, you can reprogram the Bixby button, kind of, sort of. They giveth and they taketh away. You were briefly able to reprogram it, and a lot of people reprogrammed it. And then they were like, you know what? On Android 9, on Verizon, we need to stop that. And so guess what doesn't work anymore? And then there's third-party software. It's a game of cat and mouse. Just, I've got my FX Tech phone now. I don't even care.
So yeah, that's unfortunate. It's not a good look. And the other thing that I should have put this with the other story, the big merger, one of the conditions of that was it's like, hey bro, you can't own both of these companies. There has to be some sort of competition, of at least pretend that there's some competition. So that whole Boost Mobile thing, you got to sell it. Now the interesting thing was, when they were batting their numbers back and forth, they're like, well, Boost Mobile is probably worth like $6 billion, right? Ooh.
Dish buys prepaid carrier Boost Mobile for $1.4 billion as a result of T-Mobile's Sprint merger. The deal will advance Dish's 5G plans. Sorry for anybody that's using Boost Mobile. You're probably looking at about double your currently monthly bill. Sorry. For no change in service. Probably the service will be worse.
Unfortunate. And you'll get dish advertisements with your billing. That's not the only thing. It's going to get more expensive. If you're one of those people who wanted to be a cable cutter but couldn't really commit to it, one of the things you could do was get your same cable TV, but just get it over the internet and pay somebody else for it, like Google. And for a while, it was $35 for a very short while. Since then, they've been jacking it up time after time, and now they've done it again.
YouTube TV jacks up pricing to $64.99, the most expensive cable TV alternative. Yep, a lot of people abandoning ship, I imagine.
Yeah, say who in their right mind would pay almost $70 for YouTube TV?
I looked for the cord. I looked for the cord cutter numbers for like the last, because it should be out, right? Because July, and those numbers don't seem to be out yet. But I imagine that the last quarter's cord cutting numbers are just insane.
I want to take cable off of my plan, but every time I've changed my plan, they've broken something and my internet went out, and I'm afraid to do it while we're locked down because you can't get anybody out to your house if they completely destroy it.
Yeah.
Like they literally, I'm afraid of their incompetence so much that I'm waiting for a window to change my plan.
The brief reopening window. It's like, we're going to be open for this week and then we're going to shut down again next week.
I'm going to save probably like $50 a month. Now, for that extra money that I think it was $10 or $15 increase. What do you get? You get the Viacom channels. That's the only difference. MTV and Nickelodeon are the big ones.
Who cares?
What's on MTV these days?
The new Beavis and Butthead.
Oh yeah, I saw that. Yeah, MTV is one of those weird things that, like, during our lifetime, well, not Krista's, but you and I saw it when it came to be, and then how it morphed into something completely irrelevant.
It happens with a lot of channels. Like the History Channel was amazing at first. It was awesome. And then it became about ancient aliens.
MTV,
because that makes more money,
caused a lot of distress in our fundamentalist Christian household. My extended family as well. They were not happy about that evil coming into their homes.
The radiation is just showering the house with this unseen evil at all times. Yeah, exactly. Actual quote.
It was Satan was just like coming through that coax. Bitcoin. We had the big Bitcoin halving, and not a whole lot has happened. It has gone up recently, I think. Although the big gains from the halving, I think there's like a 6-month lead time or something like that.
Yeah.
But the cool thing about Bitcoin, or one of the cool things about it, is when big things happen, it's all out there for you to see publicly. You don't know who, but you know how much.
Someone mysteriously sent almost $1 billion in Bitcoin. An unknown person or entity just sent a whole lot of money while hiding in plain sight. It was like 993 million, something like that. And we don't know if it was an exchange, an individual, or what.
Somebody lost a bet.
It was Elon, right? Here's the conspiracy. It was Elon Musk sending money to Kanye West.
Is that why he sold all his houses? That makes sense. He went all the cash, bought Bitcoin with it, and now he's gonna send it out.
To support the Kanye West campaign because 2020 wasn't weird enough.
God, can you imagine? I mean, it's not that much different than Trump, but I feel like at least Trump accomplished some actual business things. He might have gotten a lot of help, yes, but he did work that out somewhat on his own. And it's not.
That would mean a Kardashian would be our first lady.
Oh wow!
The implications are just.
Now, okay. Here's an engagement challenge. Every first lady has a pet project, right? I think Michelle's was nutrition.
Yeah.
What's Melania's? I don't know what Melania's is.
I have no idea. I feel like Melania just doesn't want to be there, but she can't leave effectively.
Yeah. So what would the Kardashian? Which one is it? Kim? Is that?
Yeah, I think so.
What would her first lady project be? Engagement challenge. Walmart Walmart has modified its hours like many stores have. They're not doing the 24-hour thing anymore. I don't think they've gone back, right? What time do they close now? Like 11? 12?
Yeah. Earlier sometimes. They've closed at like 8 or 9 p.m. a few times.
That would make more sense if they're doing this. So the parking lot, which is usually open at any given time, isn't seeing a lot of use. How can you repurpose a parking lot?
Walmart is converting its parking lots to pop-up drive-in theaters for the summer. 160 Walmart parking lots will be transformed to drive-ins. Walmart hasn't said if they're going to charge for admission, but they are going to charge for concessions, and you can drive through and pick up your concessions. Walmart's going to make a lot of money that way for sure, but yeah, I don't know if they're going to be charged for the drive-in or not.
There's actually a drive-in in my hometown, and you got charged to come in, but it was like really low. It was cheaper than standard movie. And then they made all their money on concession.
It'd be great to go and get like one of those whole rotisserie chickens. Just eat that while you're watching the movie.
Yeah, it's like I want all the self-loathing and just yeah, this movie's amazing.
I want a
drive-in theaters should always be a thing. Like I always thought that they were a better experience for less money, and you can bring your own food. Like,
oh, I bet they're trying to figure out a way not to let you do that at these. But start me with a rotisserie chicken, and then in 25 minutes, when the movie's really getting on, bring me like a gallon of Great Value vanilla.
No, it would be a hot apple pie and a gallon of milk. Just from the grocery side, just bring it out.
And then right as the movie ends, everybody just piles into that bathroom inside the Walmart. Just destroys it. Krista, do you have any news on the Lord of the Rings Amazon series?
I just know that they have let the cast and crew back into New Zealand, so they will be resuming filming soon.
Exciting. And they won't be alone, although I guess these guys aren't filming in New Zealand, but they won't be alone on Amazon when it comes to high-profile, rabid fandom TV shows, because now we have another exciting one that has been announced.
Oh, it's me. Fallout TV series from Westworld creators in the works at Amazon. I feel like this will be a disappointment.
It almost has to be, right?
I feel like the author of this article doesn't know what they're doing because they should have had Ron Perlman in the picture.
So these are the creators, and these are also the creators of Westworld. Now, I've never watched Westworld, but I've heard a lot of people say that it was really good, and then it got really bad.
I haven't watched the last season.
Yeah, almost everyone I've talked to said the same thing.
They will continue to make Westworld. Now, they have this deal where they make one episode, and Amazon can pass or not, but no matter what they do, they get paid full price. So I think at that point, like, they're probably just going to make it, right?
Yeah.
What do you think? So we've had 5. Well, the first one was in the Mojave Desert as well, right? So we've only had 5 areas. What geographic location do you think this will be in?
I think that they have to do it in the West. They're going to reuse Westworld sets.
I think that, so they'll do the Mojave.
Yeah. Seems likely. That or a bunch of underground stuff.
Was Fallout 1, was that the Mojave Desert?
Oh, I can't remember. All I remember is the earlier Fallouts were so much more cerebral.
Yeah. And, of course, you got DC, Boston, West Virginia. Yeah, I think you got to do the desert.
The West Virginia one, I had such high hopes, and it was so disappointing.
You know, they redid it.
As usual.
They have, like, they put actual NPCs and stuff in it now.
Huh. Theoretically, I own it. I guess I could go back and...
I don't think anybody was all that impressed afterwards.
I didn't hear anyone talk about it.
Now, this is not the story we're doing here, but did you guys hear about the hot new Battle Royale that they, like, snuck out last week? They're doing this thing now where they don't announce games. Just one day it pops up on Twitch. They give it to like 1 or 2 of the big streamers. And then the only way you can get into the beta is to watch the stream for hours and hours and hours. And it seems like a brilliant plan. I can't remember the name of it. Hyper something. But it's like a really fast-paced Battle Royale.
Engagement challenge.
And that's the new hotness, I guess, right now.
Huh.
So like everybody's watching that because they're trying to get a copy of it. So if you're a streamer, you desperately want to please them because you know you're going to get big numbers because they're not just watching it to watch you play it. They're watching it because they want it. And that's the only way they can get it. Now, One game that did not release that way, perhaps to their detriment, was Crucible. I'd heard of this, but I'd completely forgotten it existed after I'd heard of it because no one cares.
After a lackluster launch, Amazon has pulled Crucible back into a closed beta weeks after the game's release. Oh, man. It was free to play, but apparently...
not free enough.
Yeah, it bottomed out at only a few thousand players.
Krista, what's the Overwatch 2 timeline? Has that changed because of the conditions?
I don't know. I haven't heard anything else about it. I'm still enjoying Overwatch 1. It's been, 3 years? I've got my money's worth out of that game.
But isn't Overwatch 2 basically going to just be more Overwatch 1?
Yeah, essentially. Just more maps and characters, which they'll be released in Overwatch 1 as well, so it's like...
The criticisms
really
for
like
this one is that everything was just really bland, and they tried to take stuff from every game and just sort of stuff it in there, and it didn't seem like they really knew anything about what they were doing.
I would have said that stuffing Minecraft into PUBG wouldn't work, but hey, look at Fortnite.
Yeah.
Yeah, but it didn't work when they did that. It didn't work till they put the Battle Royale into it. They just went over to PUBG, and they were like, oh, we made this. The next generation consoles are probably coming out before Christmas. I mean, who knows? Everything's in question now with if half the population's dead by then, they probably won't. But it seems like it'll take a lot to stop them. And when that happens, we'll all be buying new games.
We'll be buying new games for the motherland.
And you might be buying less new games. Not because you're jobless, but because they're more expensive now.
NBA 2K21 lists suggesting that next-gen AAA titles will be $10 more expensive. So $70. We'll have it's Australia prices finally in the United States.
No, but you know that they're going to take Australia up to 80. They
Yeah,
might just go 85.
Yeah.
It's like, we'll do it. Whatever.
Oh, and thus begins the runaway inflation here in the United States.
Now, what's interesting is you can get the same game, although it will obviously be less graphically beautiful, for the current generation of consoles, and it'll still be $60. You only pay $70 for the higher res version. Also, they're not telling us how much either next-gen console is going to cost. Like
it's gonna go up.
they're not willing to tell us because I think they're afraid the other one's going to undercut them.
Yeah, that's likely.
I guess it's a good situation to be in, but they're throwing out stuff like $750.
You can get such a nice computer for that.
Now, we tried the fake meat. Have you had any since then,
No.
Krista?
No.
We did get a box of I think it was the plant-based sausage biscuits in the break room, and they were gone immediately. So somebody here really liked them.
So you didn't try any of them?
I was going to try one, but it was like the 8 count, and they were gone in like 3 or 4 days.
That's impressive since, not many people in the office right now.
That was a few weeks ago.
Cleaning lady?
It might have been.
Yeah, because she's like vegetarian, right?
That was probably about a month and a half ago now.
But with sausage, the same as the Impossible Burgers, that is a ground meat.
Yes.
So the big problem is like, okay, are we just going to give up all the texture in our meat? Are we going to be eating ground beef for the rest of our life, or ground plant or whatever? If we go into the fake meat world, one company says no, we have the answer.
3D printed plant-based steaks could arrive in 2021. These steaks promise to mimic meat texture better than other plant-based alternatives. This talks about how mushroom fibers a lot of the time are used to fake that, meat fiber-like fibers. And this is saying, oh no, we can just 3D print the fibers and that'll be a much more realistic texture. So we're that much closer to a food replicator at this point.
My favorite method of 3D printing steak? Growing a cow.
Sent a cow. I want to imagine that there's like a competing team of scientists, and like their manager guy is like, guys, we're entering the world of 3D printable meats, and Senecal is going to be obsolete. You have got to get the Senecal project finished immediately, or we're just not. We're going to be obsolete.
It's like, God damn it, Frank! We've lost 5 scientists already. It's too violent. It's like, no, it'll work. We'll figure it out.
I thought that we had made amazing progress when I saw the meat glue videos, and you should watch the meat glue videos, and then you should read about all the terrible things about the meat glue, because your local grocer is probably already using the meat glue dust. But like if you breathe the meat glue, it will glue your lungs together.
That's
your
fine.
lungs are made of meat, so it's bad.
But all those delicious stuffed chicken cutlets, I'm living on those at this point. Except they're out of stock.
I can't wait for the whatever's in meat glue. Like if you had like an applicator that was intelligent enough to not just sandblast it. Like if you had a gunshot wound to the chest, in addition to like the bleed stop thing, that would probably just sew you right back together.
You know who that'd be really useful for is the Chinese organ harvesters.
Just pop a kidney out and just sprinkle some dust on it. Maybe that's what they use in RimWorld. It's because it's like I've got a hunter-gatherer level technology, and I can pop that kidney out and pop it in somebody else, and it's fine.
Pop this one back in the holding cell. We'll get the rest of it later. I'm going home today. I've pulled a double. Tired. And once again, companies doing everything they can to signal that they're with it, they're hip. Please don't burn down our buildings. Please just stop what you're doing. We'll do whatever you say.
Go back to normal.
The latest one is Reddit.
Reddit finally bans hate speech and removes 2,000 racist and violent forums, including the Donald. I wonder why they removed that. Oh yeah, no, it's like it was really bad. There was a lot of really racist and anti-Semitic stuff in there. So let's. I don't think anybody shed a tear.
But a lot of people have pointed out, and I guess maybe it's work in progress, but there are a lot of really questionable subreddits that still exist. Certainly that I would think are more violent and extremist than the Donald. Although I didn't spend any time in the Donald. I don't know how bad it was exactly, but just the names of the other one really shock. So we'll see. I don't think there were a lot of... I guess, these users were there for some reason, but who goes to Reddit thinking, yeah, I'm going to get a down-the-sitter political experience here. There's no bias on Reddit. I guess, where else do you go? And finally, one of the big outrages that comes with the speaking out movement hit a online... Actually, I think these are not usually online. These are usually in person, but because of the current situation, it was going to be online for the first time. They were gearing up to finally bring it back, and then scandal hit.
Evo 2020 online tournament canceled after allegations against the co-founder. I totally missed this one. I don't even know what Evo is.
Evo is it's not a game.
Is it not?
It's a tournament. I mean, there's probably a game. There's probably a game called Evo, I'm sure, but this is a tournament where I think they started out as like a Street Fighter tournament, but it has since expanded to a bunch of different games, and you go in person and have these big tournaments for fighting games and stuff like that. So this is a crazy story. Here's what happened. So Evo, I think it used to be like they would actually go to arcades and have these little tournaments, and it grew and grew and grew till they like organized it, and then they would go around the country to different arcades and host these events. It was like an event organization. So there was a handful of insiders who started it out from this one arcade somewhere, and it was like a mini golf course. And one of the youngest one of those people wrote this big long story about one of the founders and what he did to him. Now here's what he did, and this doesn't seem that crazy to me, but so the victim was 18, first of all, right? So this guy would give him game tokens and challenge him to stunts. Some of those stunts were strip down to your underwear and go jump in the it was a mini golf course, so they had like water traps. It was like, go jump in the water trap just in your underwear, and you'd get tokens for that. And then one day the victim here was Asian, and they came upon a debate about the size of Asian penises.
Oh no.
And he insisted, no, that's not true. It's a stereotype. Mine is actually above average. And the offender was like, prove it and I'll give you $20. And he did. And so he at the time did not know that this leader guy was gay. Mr. Wizard is that guy's username. And after he found that out, he kind of felt like a victim. So he reported all this, and based on that, and the Mr. Wizard guy, I guess, confirmed that it did happen. So now, shut the whole thing down.
Wow. For God's sakes, nobody tell him what happened in the 70s.
Now here's the double standard in my opinion. For $20, I could see so many 18-year-old vaginas right now. As many as I would like. Live and in person. For another 20, actually I haven't been there in like a decade, but maybe inflation. But for another 20, maybe 30, I could have those rubbed against me. So we're going to cancel the thing over all that? I don't know. It's an interesting world we're living in, chat. Cancel culture.
We'll see you in the next one.
Bye.
Chris is just like, I have nothing.
I have nothing to add. Hello. Today is July 10th, 2020. We're halfway through this horrible year, and this is the end of the news for the week. Today we're doing security and nonsense.
I think we're more than half at this point.
The most boring section of the news with the most exciting section of the news.
Chrissy, you have to embrace security. You're so down on it.
It'll never happen. End of 2020 it'll happen, and then that'll be the doomsday scenario.
When everyone wears a mask.
For 2021. Yeah. Yeah.
Well, you're going to be so excited to hear, Krista, that Apple is rolling out all these new security features, and you got to give them credit because what these are doing are protecting the end user and inconveniencing the corporate entities. It's great.
New Mac OS Big Sur features to hamper adware operations. Apple has disabled the ability to silently install Mac OS profiles from the CLI in Mac OS 11, a measure that is widely employed by adware and malware gangs. Basically, you can create an installation profile that will use malware DNS servers or malware browser settings or whatever, and which is something corporations want to do. So this is a feature for corporations to automate a large fleet of Macs. Now it requires a user to click on something. So I think a lot of corporations that have Mac automation will probably be annoyed, and I think the malware people will probably find a pretty easy way around this because the delicious Unix underbelly of Mac OS hasn't been properly maintained, and Mac OS is basically wildly insecure at this point.
They don't traditionally have a ton of ransomware specifically targeted toward them, but sometimes they do, and this flavor of it is really, really, really nasty. It's kind of the buffet of ransomware. It's a little bit of everything.
The new Mac ransomware is even more sinister than it appears. The malware known as ThiefQuest or EvilQuest has spyware capabilities that allow it to grab passwords and credit card numbers. So, like I was saying, Apple, like the only way that Apple can really stop this is by going to walled garden, no root, no full access for you on your own devices, route with their desktop computers as opposed to their mobile devices. And mark my words, that's exactly where Apple is going to go. You're going to get all your apps from the App Store. Your device is going to be locked down to where you can't install or do anything with it because it's just too dangerous. But the reality is that instead of using those security features to protect the user, they're just going to not allow anything that's not been sanctioned by Apple, which is the worst of both worlds.
And that is not just ransomware. It is full malware, access to everything, exfiltrating everything.
Basically can't get rid of it.
As it encrypts. So, terrible. This headline is it's a weekly thing, and there's no reason to spend a lot of time on it. It's the same story as always. It just keeps happening.
Double check this list of apps. Google removes 25 Android apps caught stealing Facebook credentials. The malicious apps were downloaded more than 2.34 million times.
Oh, not super bright flashlight.
No.
So, yeah.
Super wallpapers. Really? You need my Facebook credentials?
I saw one that was like contour something, and for a second I thought it was like an app to help you contour your makeup, and I was like, do people use that? But it's not.
Oh, I bet they do.
I'm sure there's one out there that does it, but I don't think that's what that one is.
Now, we talked last week and a little bit in the other episode about the clipboard thing. This is another Apple feature that they changed. They now notify you every time that an app is snooping on your clipboard. And a lot of people are like, wow, this is happening in weird places. One of those weird places is really embarrassed about it this week.
LinkedIn says iOS clipboard snooping after every key press is a bug and will fix. The new clipboard access detection is a warning feature in iOS 14 and exposed another app. This was not a bug. LinkedIn is a horrible, evil piece of software that is very terrible in, like, it's not just, like, the whole idea of what it is terrible and anti-individual. So. Just another data point confirming that.
And when it comes to security, of course, we have to be very aware of it. And you have to be very proactive when it comes to security because, you know, if these stories don't teach anything else, no one else is taking your security into consideration. They don't care. They want your money. They're not going to protect you. And maybe the bedrock of your security is having a solid password. So is your password solid? Krista, what's your password?
What's your first car?
Well, hopefully yours, I have faith that yours is much better than many of the ones mentioned here.
1 out of every 142 passwords is 123456. I believe it.
Hey, that's the combination of my luggage.
Yeah.
So yeah, there's some other interesting metrics here. The really bad password list is used an alarming number of times, percentage-wise. Like everybody's just using the same terrible passwords. Oh yeah, 42% were dictionary attack vulnerable. Ouch.
The password is Rosebud.
So a lot of times, you know, like when people are having trouble, and I never ask somebody for their password, but they're just like, here's my password, just go fix it. And pet name is probably the biggest one.
Yeah.
And there's no numbers or anything.
Oh, just the name?
Just
wow.
the name.
Rue 123456. There.
Rue would never meet the minimum requirements.
Yeah. I've never even thought about using my pet's name for a password or anything. I don't use it for anything.
Well, you probably established your passwords before Rue even existed.
Oh, we have to change our passwords so often, though.
Well, next time, just change it to...
I feel like I'm changing mine all the time, and it drives me nuts.
Change it to Rue.
It feels like it's all the time because it also still feels like it's January of 2020.
Yeah, that's true.
Now, this story we actually talked about when it happened. It was happened a while back. So this was a guy who worked at Yahoo and used his power as an engineer to look into the accounts of women he knew to find nude pictures and videos. He was caught red-handed. He admitted to it. And, of course, you guys have read the story, but engagement challenge, what do you think the punishment for that should be? It's less than what you think, I imagine.
Bay Area hacker who infiltrated 6,000 accounts looking for private sexual content has avoided jail, according to SiliconValley.com. Former Yahoo engineer targeted young women's profiles. So I guess he just didn't target enough. Like, if it was like Cambridge
6,000.
Analytica, if it was 6 million, he probably would have gotten, you know...
Now, Krista, if someone were to go into your personal stuff and find nude pictures of you, what would you say would be the proper punishment for that?
You know, I'd be surprised because I don't take those kind of pictures precisely because of weirdos like this.
Well, suspend disbelief.
This is part of the thing. You know, people are like, why don't women ever come forward with this guy? It's like, because of this. How many times does it take before someone gets arrested? Like, geez.
Also, he assured them that he destroyed the hard drive that all that was stored on. What do you think the odds of that are?
It seems low.
Yeah, I'm sure.
Yeah. Interesting. Also,
everyone's like, well, let's believe him.
Don't you think we have to, in the current circumstances, a house arrest sentence? We're all on house arrest.
Yeah.
How's it different? Yeah, that's an interesting one. I can see, you know, like that might be a really good argument for the whole, like, you know, justice system race imbalance thing. Like, what if he'd been black?
Death penalty.
Like? That definitely exists. Lenovo NAS devices Oh, they're so convenient. But the problem is, I'd say 2 to 3, maybe 4 years after you buy them, Lenovo is no longer very interested in them. They would like you to buy the new one. And even if they are interested in fixing them, are you patching yours religiously? Are you doing it?
No. A hacker gang is wiping Lenovo NAS devices and asking for ransom. Ransom notes signed by Cloud Security Hacker Group are being found on old Lenovo EMC NAS devices. I love this. This is great.
I like this picture. Krista, what do you think about this picture? Like,
I find it strangely hypnotic. It's just like an off-register image in RGB, but I like it.
so yeah, $200 or $275. How do you think they determine whether is it the size of it? Is that
Probably.
per gigabyte?
Yeah. That kind of ransom will probably be paid immediately. I can't tell you how many times somebody has asked me, it's like, oh, can I run this app on my NAS? Is that okay? And it's like, you're going to open that up to the internet? And they're like, yeah. And I was like, no, don't do that. One, you're not going to maintain it. And two, are you insane? And then later they're just like, well, I did it anyway. I was like, well, you deserve your fate.
Yeah, well, if you're pro criminal tip, it seems like if you're going to do ransomware, one of the biggest parts of it is coming up with a realistic number for the ransom.
Yeah, 275 just for the
Yeah,
people are going to pay that.
that you're going to make up in volume what you lose in.
You're going to have to build your own like criminal self-service portal where it like runs your credit card, accepts your payment, and then because you couldn't handle the volume.
You will definitely have to do a lot more legwork, but it's going to be worth it. Now, Krista, the new Windows 10 layout, how do you feel about it?
Meh. Incremental change.
It does look very similar.
Yeah. There's a before and after slide here. Microsoft announces new Windows 10 start menu design and updated Alt tab. If you scroll down in the article, there's a before after GIF, and it basically just kind of looks like they got rid of the blue.
The icons on the left are a little different.
Yeah, they
Smaller.
got rid of the background on them. They said that they were like, oh, we wanted to de-emphasize the tiles, which I mean, removing the color does, but from a hierarchy standpoint, if you really want to de-emphasize them, you make them a little smaller or make your list of apps on the side larger.
My favorite thing about the Windows start menu now is that with all the tiles and everything else, the start menu has ceased to be mine. Because it's like, I'm going to arrange things the way that I want them that are useful and convenient for me. And invariably, it's like, Candy Crush, here's some Candy Crush. And it's just like, why is the start menu different on every little update? Why are my preferences reset every time there's an update?
I go with the left-hand start menu, vertical. And if you display scale, it changes the width every time your computer goes to sleep.
Nice.
You have to resize it. An RDP matches the size that it is every time. It doesn't remember its size either. So if you are working from home and you wake up and you go to RDP, you have to do 2 adjustments every time. On to nonsense. How much is everybody drinking during the quarantine?
Not as much as I should, probably.
I don't drink at all. I thought about it a couple times.
I drink every now and then.
What was how long is your latest sobriety?
Mine?
Yeah.
Probably like a month.
We still have a ton of alcohol in the fridge too.
No, that's true.
From the drunk news.
Stuff was nasty though. I didn't like that at all. Well,
it was okay.
We are probably atypical. I think people are drinking more during the lockdown, and maybe that's for the best.
Moderate drinking may improve cognitive health for older adults, a study says. Low to moderate is what the study actually said.
Now, here is a crazy thing that they pointed out in this article. Only white people.
Huh.
Black people who drank more in their... This is 40 plus and 60 plus. 60 plus is the most benefit. 40 plus, a little bit of benefit. But if you're black, none of that.
Interesting.
I wonder why.
Probably because the difference is in the people they studied. I think it was only 100 people.
Yeah. I was going to say, like, is there some sort of control for that? Like, is it just the skin color or, like, what genetic differences you might have? Or are there other things that they're not controlling for?
what if the difference is not biological? What if the difference is I've quieted all of the voices in my head for a time, and I have that to look forward to every day, and it's really just the mental health of having the quietness in your head as a result of the alcohol that is producing the beneficial health effects. And it's not a biological mechanism.
So you're saying the black people don't have the voices?
Well, they're still under a lot of stress because of their economic situation and other factors.
I don't find alcohol silences anything. Is that what did you experience that from alcohol?
Yeah, I can't. Like, everything slows down and things get very quiet in my head.
See, I don't drink very often, but when I do, it usually just makes me kind of giggly. Like, it makes me want to, like, socialize. It's a good social lubricant.
Yeah, I definitely find things much more funny than I would otherwise.
Alcohol's effect on me mostly is to make me want to drink more. Which is a bit of a spiral.
Yeah.
Well, of course, a lot of our stories are about the cancel culture and, signaling. How do you do it? Every company's trying, and they're doing everything they can. Here's another one that means absolutely nothing.
Forza will ban Forza players. Microsoft will ban Forza players who add the Confederate flag to their digital cars.
What does that mean? You know what we can't have in our life anymore? Oh, no. The General Lee.
Oh.
Somebody had painted one of those blue and called it the General Grant, which I thought was really funny.
I bet modern kids don't know about the General Lee.
Probably not.
They rebooted it.
I didn't watch that growing up, so, like, I don't really feel anything.
But they rebooted
lost.
it, remember? Didn't they?
Did they?
Yeah.
Oh, I didn't watch that. I missed it.
I don't remember. It's been a while since they rebooted it, but it was like the 2000s. Because one of the Pop-Tarts was Daisy.
Oh, yeah.
Oh.
So you can't have that. You can't have swastikas, obviously, or any other, what do they call it? Like, hate symbols. I can't remember what the terminology they used. But in Forza, you're probably thinking, like, why do they give you that option in the first place? You can actually, like, create your own sprites, I guess.
Mm.
Put them on your car.
If they come for the Knight Rider car,
feature in games.
if they come for the Knight Rider car, I will riot.
Well, he didn't have any iconography, did he?
Well, was the General Lee's Confederate flag? I don't know. Maybe
made it faster.
Was the I didn't realize that the Dukes of Hazzard had a racist connotation, so I feel it's like the Swedish Chef. I feel really bad for laughing at the Swedish Chef. I guess that's not okay, and it's not supposed to be funny. And the Swedish Chef in Sweden is Danish, so yeah, I don't know. That's probably not good.
I don't think they ever did anything particularly racist, but you could definitely get a vibe.
Yeah,
that certain people might not want to be in Hazard County after it gets dark.
I was thinking more like the Confederate flag in the context of the Dukes of Hazzard TV show was about being defying the law, because the law was
they had been in trouble with the law since the day they were born.
But yeah, it's very, very
they
bad.
never meant harm.
Yeah, exactly. So
yeah, that's you're definitely getting into dangerous territory with that argument.
They never. Let's amend the intro song to say they never meant any harm to any races, creeds, religions. Just explicitly get it out there.
I don't know that that's true. Now, Krista, I wanted to get a series of articles in front of you here because you're always asking about, like, what is the July cataclysm event, right?
Yeah.
And I think we have some strong candidates here. The first of which, on the surface, it's somewhat related to black holes, not directly, but I feel like a black hole is involved here, and I feel like
black hole adjacent.
They're definitely, this is something that it's doing to try and get to you.
A massive star has seemingly vanished from space with no explanation. This is the writers teasing the intro for, like, the November. No, it'll be the December event because the election is in November, so it'll be the December event. And that'll be what has to bring humanity together, is like the massive star appearing.
During the riots of December, after the post-election riots and the war, this star will appear in the horizon.
Yes.
And we'll all just look up at it, shielding our eyes, and it's like, oh, we better come together. And then
New Year's, it's like season 2, 2021.
Okay, I like that.
But yeah, this star disappeared, and yeah, it's like 600 light years away. So I guess that's not dangerous.
But we're not sure where it went. Didn't seem to turn into a black hole. Didn't go supernova. It's just gone.
What if turn into a dwarf?
What if some alien technology just like absorbed all that energy?
The article actually mentions that a Dyson sphere or something like that is the only technology that we know would do that, but we don't know that technology. It's the only theoretical technology. But even doing something like that in less than 10 years would just be unheard of. Like, what an engineering, like, how would that even work?
I bet that some massively futuristic alien race is doing that purely to mine cryptocurrency. Galactic cryptocurrency.
Yeah.
And the next one, Krista, is another thing that I know is it's something that you enjoy that could easily become the next event. I mean, with what we're dealing with right now, a lot of people probably aren't spending time in lakes and rivers, but when the power goes out and the municipal water stops running, this could be huge.
I saw this actually and sent it to my husband last night. A rare case of brain-destroying amoeba has been confirmed in Florida. This is Naegleria fowleri, which we see every couple of years. It occurs in warm water. And you get it like when you get warm water up your nose, and then it eats away at your brain. Very cool.
You know who I bet would be really good at spreading this? Lil Roo.
I don't know if it affects dogs or not, but we usually get a few cases of this every year. You should wear a nose plug if you're in warm water.
She's gonna go into shallow warm water, and then she's gonna come home and she's gonna shake it everywhere, and it's gonna be amoebas all over the place.
Just
every
everywhere.
Surface of your home.
Just covered in fowleri. This is one of the most popular episodes on the television show Monsters Inside Me, which is about parasites.
How quick
There's
does it kill
also a popular episode of House that deals with this disease.
Is this a painful death?
Yeah, it takes a while.
Yes. Yeah. It's very rare. Like, this doesn't occur super often, but it is not great.
So remember, chat, when you're foraging after the fall, after the war, always keep that one bullet for yourself. Because you get the fowleri, and you do not want to die that way. Gee, believe me. And finally, Krista, the triumvirate of possible end-world scenarios, we have one that's maybe a little too likely to be bad for us, unlike the other two.
Yeah, mysterious spike in radioactivity over Northern Europe. Accident at Russian nuclear plant suspected. Wasn't this Sweden again? And wasn't it a Swedish lab before that discovered the Chernobyl leaks?
Yes.
Yeah.
This one
they're like, this has happened before.
Yeah, they literally compare it to Chernobyl. No, there's been an update to this. I don't know if this article was updated, but I went looking. It turns out that it was some dude who set a forest fire in the exclusion zone. So
nice.
The radiation spike is because the radioactive forest was burning down outside the exclusion zone.
Just doing a little camping, I guess?
Yeah, it's just in the exclusion zone.
A little radiation camping.
Well, so that was the explanation at the time we were filming. Now, of course, by next week, maybe the reactor will have melted down and that cleverly invented cover story will...
Well, if we, again, harken back to Chernobyl, they had some excuses then, too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I got to think with all the satellites, though, it'd be harder to keep that a secret.
Yeah.
This one doesn't really have a good technology connection, but I don't know. This headline just really cracked me up for some reason. Like, what a ridiculous thing. I mean, it's a terrible story, but it's just funny that, I was like 140 million?
Yeah.
Could result from something so silly.
Former Bumblebee CEO gets jail in canned tuna price-fixing conspiracy. Christopher Lashewski, I don't know how to say that.
Lashewski is probably right.
He was sentenced 40 months in prison and a $100,000 fine, but they made over $100 million.
That's how it works. And it's so they mentioned Bumblebee and Starkist. Are they the same? Does Bumblebee make? I thought they were competing brands.
Well, yeah, it's price fixing. So it's like you don't. I
But
won't raise
why
my
would-
prices if you don't.
Why was Starkist? I guess Starkist had to be. I think one of them got immunity because they admitted to it. But tuna's so cheap. You know, I worry because those little pouches of tuna are a go-to lockdown food for me, and I worry about the mercury
Yeah,
because that's a real thing.
I used to love having those on just white bread. It was a great snack, and then it was like mercury.
But now they make a chicken version.
Ooh.
Yeah, nice.
It's like a really great like hiking and backpacking food. Requires no refrigeration. It's lightweight.
All those preservatives that get in your organs make you healthier.
Can't be any worse
Yeah.
than the frozen pot pies.
No, it certainly can't. Those things are so salty.
Yeah.
Man, I eat those sometimes. It's just like I can feel the water being wrung out of my organs.
They're less salty than the frozen chicken biscuits.
I don't eat those. I find the chicken in those to be a little spongy. So here's an interesting story about how, life will find a way. You lock people down and you think you're going to destroy all their favorite leisure activities, but no, they'll just take them online. And sometimes it's grotesque, horrible things that they're doing that with.
Because the algorithm a couple of weeks ago, I'm going to change the headline slightly.
Yeah, rooster.
Yeah. Rooster fighting in Cayenne de Oro goes online. Police raids a failure. So they're still doing rooster fighting. It's just online, and you can join the Zoom meeting, pay your fee, and you'll get the link, and you can place bets and all this other kind of thing because live streaming. This is horrible.
This is something that was very popular where we grew up.
Yeah.
And
It's still popular where we grew up.
Yeah.
I know some people who do this.
it is grotesque. So
Yeah.
they're talking about how before they could sometimes bust these because it would be a big crowd, and you'd see people coming in and out of like an empty warehouse or something, and be like, "Oh, I bet I know what's going on there." But now that it's live streamed, it's literally like 6 guys there. It's like the owners, the handlers, and 2 guys there just to make sure everything's on the up and up. And the betting and stuff like that is all online.
Well, if we collect enough data, maybe it can be deep faked from here on out, and we don't actually have to hurt animals to do it.
You faked.
What if we get to the point where we can 3D print the entire animal?
And it's just got an Arduino for a brain.
Is that ethical? Or
robot fighting? I mean, that's
act of,
yeah,
that's too
robot fighting.
expensive. It's too expensive.
Well, no, it's like it's basically just a biological robot at that point.
Now, I'm curious though, like if I were one of these people and I was betting on this, I would question like, how do you know it's not fixed somehow?
Yeah.
Like, how do you know right before they, off camera before they threw that rooster in there, they just like bashed it over the head with something, send it a little dizzy.
Again, a robotic turkey or a robotic chicken would be a much better, because you could have its own network connection and people could be getting diagnostics continuously.
Here's the thing. I think the Venn diagram of rooster fighting enthusiasts and robot enthusiasts,
Yeah.
they don't cross very much.
Probably not.
Yeah, so it's a
Just 2
different crowd.
circles.
Yeah.
You know 2 Venn diagrams that I bet cross over a bunch is rooster fighting enthusiasts and meth enthusiasts. That would be a big, if you could involve that somehow. Here's a story that's crazy just because it's government overreach and someone kind of having fun with them, but then the government being like, well, it doesn't matter if you're right or wrong. We win.
Council wins legal battle against man who had beer can full of carrot juice in town center. Now, initially, this man was cited for having an open container of alcohol, but it didn't contain alcohol. It contained carrot juice because the guy thought that it was completely ridiculous that they were trying to, because this is a new law where this is, and they were saying, no, there's too many people wandering around with alcohol. So he initially won, and then it was appealed to the high court, wherever they are, and the high court said, you intended for people to think that it was alcohol, and people might reasonably think it was alcohol, so we're going to say this was legal. This is a very similar reasoning to when the police shoot people. And they're like, well, the police reasonably thought that was a suspect. And it's like, you got the wrong address. And it's like, yeah, we killed, it's fine. And it's like, it's not fine.
He purposely let them give him the ticket before he revealed the carrot juice because he wanted to go to court over it. I think that made them even more angry.
Yeah.
It's like, you will not tell us that we were wrong. Yeah. We were always right.
But
also, this article keeps referring to it as antisocial behavior, but like, Isn't alcohol the greatest social lubricant?
It makes you super.
Doesn't make
social.
any sense.
Yeah, it's kind of ridiculous. It is authority gone wild. As are many things these days. 10
It's
cents.
like reading about HOAs here.
Yeah. Just makes you
Ugh.
angry.
10 cent
Yeah.
is if you don't know about them, they're kind of like Chinese Google. They are a massive, massive company, and they own so much. They're so powerful, which is what makes this headline so crazy, because they got duped by, it seems like, a relatively insignificant entity.
Chinese police say Tencent likely swindled by chili sauce imposters. So Tencent is suing a chili production company, like hot sauce production company, because they didn't pay their ad bill. But it turns out some imposters may have convinced Tencent that they were representative of that company in order to get ad credits, which could be redeemed in some sort of online game. And so Tencent ran ads for the chili company, but the chili company never actually requested it, is what the police concluded. So this is a sort of a bizarre situation where it's like online advertising, and then there's game credits involved, and then because there were game credits involved, fraudsters posed this the chili company to get the ad, and they didn't figure it out until the chili company was like, "We didn't authorize this. We're not paying."
They did forge their company seal, which is a way they use in China too. But still, you think there'd be some more checks and balances in place there.
Yeah.
And that is a really, really big sauce company. It's two giant mega corporations, and just some little swindlers got in between them there. Although they did get caught, because I guess they tracked back the online transactions. It was good while it lasted. This is not really a nonsense story, and often we'll have these sort of just depressing stories that go in the nonsense section. I don't know where to put them other than that. It's ridiculous, but it's also sad.
A PA man fatally beat the father that he thought was a vampire, a lawyer says. So this guy was like 92, and this guy apparently was off his medication according to the lawyer, and is just an old guy, and he died. And the prosecutors say that it's because the old guy was hiding his phone from the other guy and just, being a grumpy old man. And the defense says no, the attacker was off his meds and stood over his body for 2 days waiting for him to come back to life.
Now, I'm not an expert on
Where
vampire
does the
lore.
vampire thing come in?
Well, that's
Why I killed him.
Yeah.
Well, so I think they're trying to get an insanity defense going here, so they're giving that. But like my vampire lore, it's not that strong. I mean, I've read Dracula. You don't have to wait for them to reanimate to give them the steak. just put it in there. It works at any time.
That's actually what they're hinging their insanity plea on. Is that he should have stabbed him sooner.
Also, the balls on a 92-year-old man to hide the phone of a known mental disorder patient. Pour one out for that guy. F in the chat for the old man with balls of steel. Everyone's living their work lives online, and that means video conferencing. And I think, some people who are a little less tech savvy, this is kind of like, this makes me think of one of my cats, where he'll go and he'll stick his head behind the curtain, but his entire butt will still be sticking out, and he thinks that he's hiding from the toy that we're playing with. He doesn't understand that just because you can't see them, they might still be able to see you.
Man offers to resign after showering during live video meeting. He mistakenly left his video on while attempting to multitask by showering while listening to an online meeting. I think they would let you know pretty early in the process.
No, they were text messaging him the entire time, but he was in the shower. So, and they actually mentioned during the meeting, they were like, somebody please call, this guy, but he was in the shower. So he thought that by downsizing the window, he was disabling the camera. Not true. And he is going to be fired, probably, or he's going to have to resign, even though, he didn't do it on purpose and nobody was really angry about it. And he was like, yeah, I'm sorry. I just didn't realize it. It's not a big deal.
Oops.
He took it really well. He said he wasn't embarrassed.
It's like, the meeting wasn't that important anyway. I needed to take a shower, so, whatever.
Maybe he's just really proud of his naked body. He's like, how can I show everyone?
He's like,
my
yeah, I've worked
penis?"
hard for this in quarantine.
Was that in Italy? I would believe it in Italy.
Oh, this is in Spain.
The night
It was in
before,
Spain.
He did like 600 squats. It's like, I'm ready. I'm ready to show him. This is an interesting headline. I don't think this is even the first time this has happened. And of course, this is going to be more and more. But then you look at the picture and it's not that impressive.
No.
It's-
Hollywood is banking that a robot named Erica could be the next movie star. And then you look at the picture and it's just like, no. The article goes out of its way to mention that the director did not want to use visual effects. So they've been training this AI for 2 years by taking the robot to like coffee shops and public places and having her interact with people. And they think that's enough to pull off whatever role it is they imagine for her in this movie, which is about, I think, AI coming to life.
yeah, it's about a robot.
So
Which, now I got to say, just based on, the pictures we've seen doing these news stories, the real dolls have, like 5-6 years on Erica. They're so much more convincing.
I think Johnny Five was so much more adorable and, convincing, lifelike
Wow.
versus this.
I wonder why they haven't remade that one yet. I guess,
It was more romantic comedy than movie about robot.
but it's not as impressive in the modern day, right? Like those robots wouldn't be.
That's what to me that makes it all the more like a military robot, because a military robot is not going to be, something like that. It's going to be something like the other thing, or possibly something like a Terminator, where it's an infiltrator. But that seems like that would be more expensive. A robot like that is much more believable because it looks like it's built with, off-the-shelf technology, not next-generation technology. That's what Spot almost looks unconvincing because it moves so much, so unlike any other robots that we've seen.
Well, we talked about some online gaming, and I think here in the U.S., PUBG has really fallen out of the limelight.
Yeah.
But in India,
Yeah.
it is still huge and still has those pesky microtransactions. But how much could you really spend on PUBG? If you really just, the sky's the limit, you didn't have anything to worry about, how much could you spend?
A teenager has spent RS16 rupees. I think we were talking about that earlier.
So lakh means 100,000.
Oh, okay.
So 1,600.
100.
1.6 million, which translates to about $200,000.
Wow.
Yeah.
My father made him work at a scooter repair shop. That's crazy.
So his dad had a savings that he was like, this was my medical savings for retirement because I know I'm going to be sick and I don't want to be a burden to anybody. Plus his mom had like a savings account for her retirement. He emptied all of it. And he was
Wow.
like shuffled between because clearly these are some older people who didn't really understand the online banking, but Brave New World, paperless. So he would transfer money, delete the text message they would get as a confirmation, and then juggle it so that when they got their statements, the amounts matched until it was just, they couldn't do it anymore.
I wonder if he even got the trench coat for all his trouble.
For $200K American, they did say that he was not just buying for himself, but for his squad as well.
I thought that was like around
They have to have
$1,000.
matching
I would not.
outfits.
I wouldn't. This person does not understand something. Like, this is bad.
Well, that's safe. Yes, I think that he does not understand something. How long do you think you have to work part-time at a scooter shop to pay back
About 20 years.
200,000 American? 20 years is the rest of his life.
Yeah.
I got to think 200,000 American is way above the average savings in India, right?
Yeah, that's what I say. Long time.
Yeah.
More about online meetings going wrong. It is easy to let your attention drift when you're on boring online meetings, but you don't always get away with it. You have to be careful about that.
Despite denial, records show extensive online shopping by Connie and Bernard during crucial board meeting. So there's a picture. You got to look at the picture. The picture is, she's like, I got a pop up, and I ignored it. No, keep going.
Here she is, that haircut. Oh boy, she's a problem. She wants to speak to the manager. So here is the picture that someone tweeted.
She's like, oh, I got a pop up. I ignored it. No, she didn't.
And so, the people said, like, okay, was it a pop up? Was it not? There was this big argument. Somebody freedom of information her search results or her search history, and here we go.
Yeah, it's just and she added stuff to her cart, and it was just she was looking for clothes. I think she could have just come right out and said, "It's like whatever they were voting on was unanimous." So I would have had more respect for her if she would said something like, "This is the result of this meeting was a foregone conclusion. We just took a long time to get there."
Here's why you can't do that, because the thing they were voting on was to rename a Robert E. Lee Memorial School.
How does that take more than 30 seconds to consider?
Well, no, but it's like if you're not paying attention and you look like she does, you must be destroyed.
What's the argument in favor of keeping it named that?
No. I mean, she even voted to change it.
Yeah.
But the guy who busted her was a black guy.
Oh.
And he was like, we're considering, something of monumental importance, and you're shopping for clothes.
But she was already convinced, apparently.
I guess that would be the way to approach it. It's like, listen, screw Robert E. Lee. If he were still alive today, I'd kill him. But since he's not, I voted, and then you know what?
Since he's not, I shopped online.
I wanted to get fabulous. Yeah. But that's the thing. There's so much tension right now that any little thing will set off the people in power and the corporations, and you have to really walk on eggshells, especially if you're a blame the gun kind of corporation. This is maybe the most insane version of blaming the gun I've ever seen.
Home Depot bans some rope sales after nooses were found tied on store spools. So farmer went in to get some rope, and they're like, we're not selling rope. And it's like, why not? It's like, well, somebody tied some of the rope on the spool and the display thing in the form of a noose. And this was in Louisville.
And who was responsible for tying that noose? Elvis. Why are they showing us a slideshow about Elvis on this story?
It's been open too long.
I was going to say, for mine, it's showing me them destroying monuments, but...
Oh, okay. So they do have a picture. Oh, I thought they had a picture of the noose.
They did.
They do, yeah.
Oh, was it
You
in the
scroll down.
video? Oh, yeah, there we go. There it is.
No, you scroll down, it's there.
So this
Can't buy
follows
rope?
this follows the NASCAR thing. And yeah, I mean, rope is one of those things, like, it really is. If you own a farm, you gotta have some rope. How does not selling rope prevent this kind of thing? Are we gonna just restrict all cordage of any kind?
The real question I had after reading this article was, this guy says he's using it to tie up his tomatoes because, tomatoes need support to grow. But I'm like, can't you get cages? How do you use rope to tie them up? Why would you use rope when you can just use cage?
Judge his tomato farming. That's really,
I'm just
really
curious. I don't
horrible.
know.
And perhaps when it comes to the unrest and the problems we have as a society, again, I think we are vilifying the wrong thing here. And what really we need to look at is the economic inequality. Because you see, it's not really about race. It's about poor versus rich and power versus no power. And maybe that's coming to the forefront a little bit in a hilarious way.
Protesters set up a guillotine outside Jeff Bezos' DC home. Well, at least a compound where he's reported to have a residence. So
it's not very big.
Yeah.
No, it's kind of sad.
I don't think that would have the necessary velocity to sever the spine and neck of Mr. Bezos. I think they'd have to drop it and then put their foot on it and stomp it.
Yeah. The sign doesn't mention Bezos specifically, but that's probably what it was for.
Well, clearly, wherever he lived would be a very rich neighborhood. Yeah. So maybe not him in particular, but,
Didn't he get $16,000 worth of parking tickets when he was building his DC home? I seem to recall that headline.
Probably.
He just didn't care where he parked because it was well, who cares?
So he worked an extra 30 minutes. Probably.
Yeah, there's an article. Actually, never mind, it's linked here. Jeff Bezos racks up $16,800 in parking fines during DC castle renovation. It's the most bougie thing I've ever heard.
Well, you know what? If you got it, that's one way to do trickle down economics, right? This one is just ridiculous. I can't imagine how it works. I can't imagine why we would want this. I can't imagine where you would put this. But apparently it's coming.
The rumors are true. Stouffer's is creating a tap that dispenses mac and cheese. After years of their restaurant executives going to the local buffet restaurants in their hometown and having the awful crustiness on the buffet mac and cheese, they finally created a solution for those buffets.
But that's so good.
The crustiness?
Yeah. I think this is another situation where we've let it run too long. But there was a picture of it. Let's see if we can reload the picture.
There's a tweet if you keep scrolling down.
Oh, am I mistaking the middle of the article? No.
There's a tweet on mine. There's a picture of it. Hang on, I can send it to you in Discord.
How are we missing that?
There's a tweet.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, we got it.
So just like a beer tap. Just
But instead of a tap, it's a piece of elbow macaroni.
yeah.
Imagine having to clean that, like being the employee who has to clean that.
It's worse than the chocolate fountain.
I might be in the minority here, but I like a mac and cheese that gets a little more solid, sets up a little bit.
Yeah.
Really?
Yeah.
Ew.
I
don't like
like
that cheese crust.
there was one of the people here brought in mac and cheese, like one of those dinner things that we did years ago, and it was like 2 cheeses, and the top cheese was a nice crust, and that was delightful. It was like a white cheese and a yellow cheese. It was so good.
If you don't use the garbage processed cheeses, it's almost impossible to get you have to use gelatin to get the consistency.
Wow.
Yeah, I don't mind if it sets up.
I think it was like a mozzarella almost, where it had just started to harden on the top. The one that they made, that was the homemade, and it was not any kind of Stouffer's pre-made product. It was just cheese and elbow macaroni, and it was so good.
It's hard to beat just pure fat and carbohydrates, salt in your face. It's so good.
Yeah.
And our final story, they also talk about the brain eating amoeba here on Atlanta, has to do with proper etiquette when you're at the zoo. Now, modern zoos right now, I don't know if they're reopened yet, but I guess this one has a drive-through service. So you can still enjoy the animals, stay in the safety of your car. You could even roll the windows down, and the animals might come over and stick their head in your car because people give them snacks, and they've learned to do that. And one thing you should never do when they stick their head in your car is strike them in the face.
Sheriff's office is searching for a person who slapped a zebra on video at Georgia Safari. Not the video from the surveillance system. It's something they posted on Instagram.
He mad.
Oh, they don't have the original video. That's disappointing.
Terrible.
What's wrong with our world? Who would do that?
He just wanted an apple. It's just a horse with stripes. Just wanted an apple.
He would have settled for a graham cracker.
A Snickers bar.
Or just like a pat. Instead, you slapped him in the face.
I think a pat probably would not have satisfied him. I think he was looking for food.
Some of those horses will get aggressive. Like if you usually have an apple and you show up without an apple, they get real aggressive.
That animal is supposed to be majestically running along the Serengeti. Its mane and tail flowing in the wind as it lives its best life, and instead it's getting punched by some douchebag kid in suburban Atlanta.
That's it for another week of Level 1 news.
Krista, give us the darkest timeline for zebras. Goodbye.
Why? I don't.
Perfect.
Why?